Hello and welcome back to my craft room. It's time to finally finish my little dolls and give them their finishing touches. So I've got these two little dolls. I've done a whole little series. There are 3 templates to go with every stage. So first of all, I made the jointed bodies, then the clothes, and the pattern for that can be adapted to create all kinds of different outfits, which I've explained as I go along. I will link to the videos, to the previous videos in this little series. Then last time it was the different ways of doing the hair and faces. You can see 2 very different looks there, just using wool. I haven't used any fancy materials or equipment anywhere. It's all just, they're all hand sewn. So very, very easy, just follow step by step and great fun to do. I'm going to be giving at least one of these little girls away at some point when they're done, but it's going to be quite hard to part with them now. So today the plan is to come back and finish off with doing bonnets, boots and bloomers. I always intended to do some kind of a hat and some kind of trousers, so that you could and some kind of footwear, so that you could complete the outfits. Once this little one came out looking all holly hobby, it just had to be bonnet and bloomers. But of course the bloomers pattern is going to be able to be adapted to be shorts or trousers or little knickers, and I've got a couple of different ways, 3 different ways actually, to suggest to do little boots. Done one there, I'm going to demonstrate the other one in a minute. It's just made out of felt, a little bit fiddly but not difficult to do really. And again, there will be a free template on my Gumroad. I'll put a link to my Gumroad in the description box. Just make sure you put 0 in the amount box, and in the donation, I think there's a donation box further down, so just make sure you put 0 in there and you'll get it for nothing. But thank you so much to everybody who's actually chosen to donate something for the patterns. I really appreciate it. That is very much appreciated. I hope everyone's enjoying using them. I haven't seen many finished dolls, a few, but not many finished dolls coming up yet compared with the number of patterns that have been downloaded. So I'm hoping other people like me are still working on them, and I'll get to see some pictures eventually. So let me show you what I'm going to use. I've done, as always, quite a bit of experimenting to get to this point. So here's the little boot that I'm going to make. You can see, it's not perfect, but I like that. I like that look. Now I started off by putting the boot together with lots of different little pieces of fabric, and I was going to do separate toe cap and sides and a separate heel piece and everything, but I just decided it was too fiddly and wanted to make it simple. So I put it together in pieces like this and then cut it down the front and opened it out to give myself a simplified design. So it now comes down to, we've got just this piece. In fact, I think I'm going to do it now because of the type of fabric I've got. I'm going to be doing it in 2 halves and seaming it down there. But I'll explain about that as I go along. This is the piece for the tongue, and this is the piece for the sole. I've got these scraps of felt that I've been using. You can see one of the prototypes I did in this lime green. Dark brown thread. I've got this embroidery perlé thread that I'm using for the laces, but whatever you've got. A pair of scissors, it's all, and some needles. It's all hand stitched. Oh, and I did use some of this glue as well. Whatever kind of glue you've got that will stick felt. So yeah, I'm going to make the second one and hope that they look similar enough to look like a pair, and I think that will finish her off really nicely. I kind of feel like I maybe want to make her some stripy stockings as well. But I've laced her into her boots now, and I'm not intending for her to be undressed and things, because this one was made by the method that basically you're sewing her into her dress. This one, however, has got one of the outfits. I made several outfits I've shown in the previous videos. These are all removable, and as I go along I'll sort of briefly cover how you could adapt the pattern again. Basically the patterns that I've made available to download, you could make any garment for a boy or girl doll just by making sort of simple adaptations. I'm really happy with how those boots are looking now. I've been all afternoon working on this. I meant to have actually got a video done by now. It's now time to stop and go and get dinner, but I thought, well, I'll just get myself all started so I can come up afterwards and carry on. So that's all you need. I had a couple of other suggestions as well. Now, I did find these for the doll that I made for Gabby that I've shown in a previous video. I'll link to that as well. I actually got some of these. I got 4 pairs for just under a tenner from Amazon, which I thought was a pretty good price. Was it just under? I think I've got a feeling they only worked out a couple of quid each, so they weren't a lot. I didn't think there was a lot of money for these. I thought they were adorable. There were 2 black pairs and 2 white pairs. Totally cute little doll that Bee sent me. You can see that what she's done is she's painted the legs, and she's just done cross stitches here to indicate that these are boots. And that's a really lovely way to do it. And you could definitely paint little shoes on instead if you wanted, keep it simple. And I just think that looks beautiful just like that. You don't need to make separate shoes. The other thing you could do is, so this is the free template you can get off my Gumroad. This is the legs. So what you could do is just use this pattern to create a very simple boot shape. I would cut it a little bit bigger. I would make it, I'm using felt because it means you can just overstitch it together because it's a very small fiddly shape. I would cut it, just give yourself a bit extra all around, cut it in felt, so you don't need a lot extra, 1/8 of an inch, a couple of millimeters is enough, and then just overstitch it to fit. So it's almost like a stocking. You could even just cut a little sole here and add a bit in the bottom. That would be very difficult to do. So I'm not going to actually sit and do that today because I don't want the video to get too long, and I've got the bonnet and bloomers to do as well. But definitely you could make a really simple kind of boot or shoe shape just by cutting this shape up to whatever length you want it, slightly bigger out of felt, and just over sew it. But what I'm going to do today is this little brown boot. Right, it's actually the next morning. I got sidetracked again. Second coffee on the go. So much other stuff going on at the moment. I can't seem to concentrate on one thing at a time. Very frustrating. So I have given her a haircut though. She looks a bit tidier now, but still, still lots of hair, but a little bit more under control. So it's time to make that second boot. And what I will do later on is scan these pieces and tidy them up, and those will be going up on a Gumroad so you can make these boots for yourself without having to go through all of this palaver that took me the whole afternoon. If I had a piece of this brown felt big enough to do that all in one piece, I would do that all in one piece. But I'm going to do it in 2 pieces to make use of these little scraps of felt that I've got. So I've folded that in half, and I'm just using this is a heat erasable white pen, and I'm just tracing out the shape. I could just as well use my friction pen actually, which is a dark blue. That would show up all right on here. If I wasn't going to be doing this in 2 pieces, I think I would just inch this over a little bit because I've allowed this to be big enough to have to over sew this together. If I was going to cut this all in one piece, I would just edge it over like that a little bit. See what I mean? So it's just overlapped there a little bit. I'm cutting this out reasonably carefully, but so first thing I'm going to do is put them together. I'm going to put them right sides together, and I'm going to run an overstitch down here. I'll use the same thread that I used before. So situations where I don't want it to have to be a knot at the beginning, I just want to be able to anchor the stitch easily. This is what I do, easily and so that it doesn't really show. This is an easy threading needle where you just put the thread in the top. Don't know if you've seen these. See if it will focus for me. Can you see there? Oh, there's a lot of fluff there. But the top of the needle is actually open, so you just pop the thread through. So I thought I've got some of these. I'll try them out. Oh, that bit of fluff there is really annoying. Okay, so what I've done is I've folded the thread in half, and I've put both ends through the eye of the needle. So it's double thickness going through the eye of the needle, and both ends are here, and at the other end is that loop where I folded the thread in half. So now what I'm able to do is just start anywhere without having to worry about anchoring the stitch, because what I'll do is I'll go in here where I'm going to start stitching. Don't pull the needle all the way through. Before I finish pulling it through, I'm going to put my needle back through that loop at the other end of the thread, like this, so that automatically it's not going anywhere. It's brilliant. I mean, it's only going to work if you're okay to have the thread double, obviously, but yeah, really useful. I find when I'm doing things like dolls' faces and things, it's really useful as well. Okay, so now I can just do a simple overstitch up here. So I'm trying to make it fairly a fairly regular stitch. Right, so I'm just come to the end, and again, before I pull the thread all the way through, I'll just put the needle back through the loop, and I will just lose the end by going back through here. That'll do. And you could just have that on the outside like that. That would be fine. But what I quite like the look of for the boots is just to turn it out that way. I just think that looks more like the stitching you actually get on a shoe. So that's what I'm doing. It doesn't matter which way you do it, really. So that's the upper all ready to go, and as I say, I've simplified it so it's kind of all in one piece except for the tongue. This is the little piece for the tongue. Let's use the smallest piece I can get away with for that. That one will do. I'm not even going to bother about drawing around this, I'm just going to cut around it. Just going to put a little bit of glue on this one. And pin just at the bottom, and just pinch it together like that, and I can leave that to dry while I do the next bit. I'll just leave that pinched together like that just to set while I do the sole. I'm going to cut that around the outside of the line. I kind of feel like I want it to be more on the generous side, because I can always cut the sole down a bit if I need to. So now, just to help myself, I'm going to kind of mark the centre of the front and back of that sole. I think that will be helpful. Yeah, I've got to stitch up the front first. So again, just putting my thread through, don't put it all the way through, put the needle back through the loop, and there you go. No knot to worry about, no having to do a double stitch or whatever. It's a really handy little tip, that. And again, trying to keep my stitches reasonably evenly spaced so they'll look neat. Yeah, I'm just going to go up to about, I can mark it on here because this will be inside out, I'm just going to go up to about there. And I'm sure you could adapt this basic pattern to make little shoes instead of boots, or you know, make higher boots, stack up the soles a bit if you wanted more kind of platformy looking ones. Right, let's just knock that off, take the thread back through a couple of those stitches so it doesn't stick out. There we go. So that's my upper done. Turn it right way out. There we go. And you can see it's given quite a nice rounded shape. You can kind of mould it a bit as well with your finger. I think if you wanted to get really fancy, you could dampen it, and you could make a little, almost like a laster, like a little shoe form for it, and leave it to dry over that. Leave the felt to dry over the form. Just trim that off so that's nice and smooth line across there. And now it's ready to attach to my sole. Let's just kind of offer it up to the sole to see if it looks about right, because if it doesn't, I'll just cut another piece that's pretty good. So I've got the pretty much the centre, you know, I've only guesstimated, but that looks about right. But just by eye, just marked the centre of the top and bottom of the sole. I've made the bottom, that the bottom of that is slightly narrower. I'm intending for that to be the heel and for it to go out more at the toe. So I'm going to line up that seam down the back with the centre point that I've marked. Now this time I'm not doing an overstitch, I'm going to do a straight stitch all around. So I'm going to pinch these two pieces together. You could just glue them together. I've left my loop on the end of my thread sticking out there. I've not gone all the way through, but instead of over sewing this time, I'm going back through to make a tiny straight stitch. So I'm going back through here and through that loop. So if I now pull that up, that will secure itself. And now, pinching the edges together all the way around, I'm going to do a straight stitch. Last time I did a straight stitch, like a running stitch, and then we're back and filled in the gaps. I think maybe this time I'm going to make it easier on myself and just do a back stitch from the beginning, because the underneath isn't going to show. I'm sticking an extra sole on that. So yeah, you can see it's quite a small, hopefully you can see, quite a small straight stitch. Then move along a little way, come out a little bit further along. I'm trying to keep the stitches really tiny to fit the scale of the boot. It's worth me just checking that everything's sort of still lining up. If you, like at this point, think, oh no, my sole is looking too small to fit the boot, you can kind of adjust a little bit. You can just ease in if the sole is too big, you can just ease it in a little bit. If the upper is too big, you can ease that in just a little bit as you go along. But this seems to be fitting pretty well, so I'm going to go all the way around and do that little back stitch. I'm not going to attempt to do all of that up underneath the camera at arm's length, because I need to see what I'm doing. So I'll be back in a moment when I've stitched all the way around and show you what I'm going to do next. There we go, I finished going all the way around that, stitching the upper to the sole. I'm just going to now trim around here so it's all looking nice and even. Just checking the shape, get my finger inside and make sure it's all pushed out. The upper was slightly bigger than the sole, the way it worked out. I just eased it in. It didn't take much to do. You can see the seam, that front seam now isn't quite central, but it doesn't matter. I might even do some boots like this in bright colours with deliberate overstitches on the seams, just here and there, to look really fun. I think it's a good basic shape that you could adapt. You could make it more pointy and put pom-poms on the end. you know, you could make a little strap, you could turn it into a ballet shoe, whatever. Yeah, it just gives you that sort of basic shape to play with there. So that is all ready to go now, and I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to put the sole on, and the way I found it was easiest to do this was to stick it onto the felt for the sole first, and then trim the shape around. Just spread it with a layer of this glue. I love this glue. It seems to work for most things for me, and felt is notorious for being difficult to stick, but there are special felt glues and things, but I find this works fine. So I'm just going to place that onto the felt. I can press it down from the inside. If you find that awkward, you could use something to get inside with, just to make sure you press that down all around the edges. See, I've missed a bit there, so let's just get a little bit extra in. And now I can cut round again. So I'm just following the the shape of the shoe around. And what I did with this one was I did an extra layer then, just to give it a slightly deeper sole. So I'm going to do that again. Obviously I want them to try and look like a pair. And this will also, with the basically triple thickness now of felt and the layer of glue, it will give it a slight stiffness to the sole, which is good. There we go, getting there, cute, you know. Oh, it was a battle, this one was, but so satisfying when you eventually get there. It's not perfection, and as I say, you can just buy a pair of trainers and you can buy other doll shoes and things, but it's quite satisfying to do it yourself. So now I just want to put the tongue in, which I left drying earlier, and that's just going to slot in here like this. Pop that in. Oh, postman. Right, so that is it. That's my little boot pretty much done. It just needs to be laced up now, and I found it easier to do that on the foot, because obviously it is going to be quite a snug fit. So what I did was put it on the shoe, on the foot first, and then lace it up in situ. Okay. And I'm never quite sure how you lace up boots, even real life boots, so you can do that however you like, but yeah, well pleased with them. I'm just going to lace this one up now, and I did that just with embroidery thread, perlé thread, which I thought was about the right kind of thickness for this scale. Let's see if I can make them both the same. That'll be a laugh, that will. I think I've cocked that up this time, but that's what my real trainers look like. But definitely, yeah, you could do that a bit more. You could do that a bit more carefully. The edges of the felt do get a little bit fragile, so if you have a go at this, do be careful. Don't like pull too hard against them, because it will just pull away, and you've done all that work, and then you pull the edges of your felt away. I guess you could try just putting some PVA or something just down those edges to strengthen them. Rub that in, let that dry before you start threading. I think that could be quite a good idea, and then make little holes through. If I do I will do another pair, because I need to do another pair for this one. I'm going to have a go at doing that, strengthening at least the edges with PVA, and then I'll punch tiny holes through and have a go at lacing up the boots a bit better. But I think you can see that that's enough for you to see, you know, the kind of thing that you can do. I need to get back in there and round out this toe as well, and because of course actually the foot inside is quite small, it does occur to me that what you could do is just slightly stuff out that little toe as well, to get the boot looking better if you wanted to. It's almost, yeah, it is. She'll almost stand up now that she's got these proper boots. Hang on, let's see if we can get her to stand. She's wanting to bend forward, but it's almost standing. Almost. There we go. She's standing by herself. Oh, I wish I had my phone. I'd get a picture. So now I need to move on and make a little pattern for the bloomers and the hat. Right, 2 or 3 more hours playing, and my little girl's got a pair of bloomers. Again, very adaptable. I've made these quite plain and quite straight, and I've made them long, but they can easily be adapted. These are just opening at the front, and I've run a thread through to gather them up, but they could just as well be stitched onto her, or they could be elasticated at the top. They could be made short, they could be made more flared and gathered to make them more flouncy. You can imagine, like, if I hold them like that. Little short ones to make little knickers. You could make them longer and narrow them down, and to turn them into more of like a trousers. So that's those, and then this is the bonnet. I was going to do a hat as well, but this is all taking me so long. I'm going to do the hat another time when I get round to doing the old lady dolls I'm planning to do next, because I think a hat would be really good for that. So this is a little kind of Holly Hobby style bonnet. I'm going to make those again. It's taken me a while and a few false starts. This was the first bonnet, didn't work out right at all. It's very flat at the back. So I'm going to do it again now, make a little slightly different style of bloomers for this one, just to show you how to adapt the shape, and a bonnet. So because her head is kind of, it's the same shape head, but it's set on the body differently. I showed that in the first video, and also she's got less bulky hair, so I'll need to adapt the bonnet a little bit to fit her, so it'll be quite good to show the difference. Let's make the bloomers first. I'm going to use some of this lovely fabric, which I've actually used for the bodice of the dress, so they'll fit together well. And you definitely could, using the tops and dress pattern, you could definitely adapt that. If you just made the bodice, had it open at the front instead of the back, and then laced it down the front, you could definitely turn this into a little camisole and have little cami and bloomers, which I think would look really cute. This picot edging that I've used at the bottom of these bloomers, if you used it down the front, sort of either side of the front of a little cami top, you could run a little lace between and make it like a little laced up cami. I think that'd be so cute. We've got two pieces, just a front and a back. So this one is the front, and it's got this extra little piece here to fold back if you want to make it a front opening. If not, if you don't want it front opening, if you wanted to make this shorter, then obviously you can easily shorten it here. You could flare out towards the bottom more to give you more of a either a flared trouser shape or more to gather in, and add a little flouncy bottom to your bloomers. You could also add more width altogether at the side here, so that you could have more of a gathered waistband and still taper it in. It's really easy to change the shapes. Once you know that's the side seam, that's the inside leg, you can see where you need to change it. I'm going to keep this fairly simple. So I need to cut two of each of these pieces. The back is just doesn't have that front opening bit. I would suggest, if you download the pattern, transfer it onto, either print it onto card if your printer will do it, or transfer it onto card once you've printed it out, just to make it easier to draw around as I'm doing here, because I just find that easier than, for these tiny pieces, it's easier than trying to pin or anything else. Because I know when the other when I did the other videos, a couple of people said, oh, I couldn't work with a tiny seam allowance like that, because I'm only allowing about 3mm or 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you want a bigger seam allowance, just give yourself a bigger seam allowance, just cut it bigger, you know. So easy done. You don't have to have the tiny seam allowance just because I have. If you're happy with about 2 or 3mm or 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, then you don't need to allow any extra. That's allowed for in the pattern. Just going to now just snip in, again about the same as the seam allowance, just make a little snip there. Oh, and I was going to just do these a little bit shorter as well. So yeah, let's just make her, she'll have little long knickers rather than bloomers. So I'm just going to cut that there. I'm just going to fold this up so it's the same, rather than waste any fabric. So first thing is to do the crotch seam. So I'm just going to stitch with my little narrow seam allowance all the way around this. So this is the back. I'm stitching all the way from the top right around that curve to here. A reasonably small back stitch. I'll make the stitches a little smaller, at least around the curved parts. And then I'm going to It's a very narrow seam allowance, but I'm just going to clip around the curves, just being careful not to go actually into the stitching, so just enough to allow it to open out flat. Just press this out. It's quite difficult with such a tiny piece as this, but it still helps to press it out. I'm not going to try and open the seam, I'm going to press it all to one side. That's the back. Now with the front, if I was happy to have it all, to have it not openable, I would just stitch, I would have cut this there basically, and I would be stitching all the way around just the same as I have with the back. If I want to have an opening so it's easier to put them on and off, because you could just, if it's one like this, she's already stitched into her dress isn't coming off because of the way she's been constructed, where with this one the outfit was made separately and you could undress her. So, you know, if I've sewn her into a dress, I might as well sew her into her knickers, but I just wanted to show the way to do it if you want to be able to put them on and off. All I'm going to do this time is stitch from here just up to that point where I made that little slit that I showed you just now. I think if it was going to be dressed and undressed a lot, I probably would overlock this seam or do a zigzag stitch or something to make it more robust. So if I want to make an opening, I want to fold back these little flaps. So I'm going to fold it back first just to meet where the seam line would be. So just folding it back by that 1/8 of an inch or 2 or 3 millimeter seam allowance, like that, and then I'm going to fold it back again. So I'm just basically folding it back twice, like that. So now that folded edge now meets with the line of stitching there. Let's just give that little press to hold it there. So I'm going to do the same here. I'm just going to fold it back once and again. Now this isn't like, you know, a full-size garment. I would have a placket or something. I'd have it so that it overlaps and things, but it's just a doll. I'm not worrying. I'm just having it meet up like this. So this will be my opening now, and I can do a drawstring like I've done on that one, or I could put a tiny popper here and just have it overlap at the top like that, and that would be enough to hold it closed as well. I could do a tiny hemming stitch, or for quickness for this demo I'm going to do a small running stitch because I think that's fine. You could definitely, you know, make these out of fancy little scraps of silk and add some embroidery and make kind of fancy lingerie for your dolls. I definitely fancy doing something like that. The next ones I want to do though are a couple of old ladies. That's what I've really got to be in my bonnet, so to speak. But I want to do some old ladies. Just think that would be so fun. Definitely do with doing this a bit more carefully really, but I just want to get this finished now. So there you go. You can see it's not the most tidy ever, beautifully finished piece of work, but you definitely could do a better job. But I think that's going to be fine for a doll's outfit. I think that's absolutely fine. So that's my front and that's my back, and now I'm just going to do the side seams. So I will stitch all the way down there and all the way down here, and in each case I will press the seams out flat. So I'm going to do that and then I'll be back. There we go. So I've sewn up the side seams and press them open, press them flat, and now I just need to do the inside leg seams. So fold it down like this and open it out, and I'm going to stitch along here. So this curve seam here, the crotch seam, I'm just sort of pressing that flat, joining those two edges together, and I'm just going to stitch along there. So I'm just doing a small back stitch again, and I'm almost done really. So that's it, that's that inside leg seam all done now. So let's turn them right way out and see how we're looking. I need to press that that inside leg seam because it's all folding up in on itself, but you can kind of see where we're going. If I wasn't having the front opening, I would just turn the top down and either gather it straight onto the doll, stitch it onto the doll basically, or I'd put a little piece of elastic through so that it could be pulled on and off. And then on the bottom I could either just turn it under and do a hem, probably turn it under twice and do a hem to be neat, or with these ones I just turned it under once and then edged it with the trimming. This is where, as I say, I could just put a popper across like that, a little popper to close the opening, or I can do a drawstring top, and I think I'm going to do the drawstring top again because that worked quite nicely for me. So I'm just going to turn over about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 centimetre, turning all along the top, really tiny little hem, just about 1/8 of an inch or 3mm, turning underneath here as well to make a hem. And I'll just do a straight running stitch for that, I think, just for this, just to demonstrate this, because I want to get this finished now. So I'm going to leave her knickers quite plain. I'm going to turn up those hems, turn under the top, and then I'll come back and just show you how I did the drawstring thing. It's quite simple. I've finished. I've just done that little hem around the top and the bottom. As I say, you could do it a lot more neatly. Do a proper hemming stitch, add a little trim, either fasten it with a popper like this, or a little bead so it looks like a button. You could put a little bit of elastic through the top. But I'm going to do the drawstring thing again. I'm using number 8 perlé cotton, the same as I did for the shoelaces. Right, so I'm just going to use an ordinary little needle here. It might be easier if I went and got a tapestry needle, but and I'm just going to go, pull that through. I've got the ends far longer than I need because I don't want to risk them pulling through. And I could have the opening at the back as well, so it looks alright from the front. So let's get these on. Give you some modesty at last, as usually with trousers or with kind of nigger patterns like that, you'd have a deeper crotch seam at the back to allow for going around the bum, but of course these haven't really got much of a bum, so the back and front are pretty similar. So, and of course the other way to do it, if you're not worried about being able to dress and undress it, is just to stitch the doll into the bloomers or whatever as well. And now I can trim that off. And if it was going to show, like with this one, I'd make sure it's a smaller, neater little bow like that, or even use a little piece of the narrow ribbon that I've used on the bonnet. Up there, how cute is that? I want her dress tucked up so that you can see her bloomers now. Now it's just the bonnet to go. So for the bonnet, it's just 2 pieces. For the bonnet brim, I'm going to fold this over. Here's my torn edge, so I know that's a straight edge. And I'm going to cut this on the fold. With this edge against the fold. And I need to do that twice. I should have done it inside out, just so I don't have to worry about removing the pen. Although I could, if I need to. Okay. It's a straight edge, so I may as well use that straight edge there. There we go. Those two should match up, well, pretty well. Close enough. And then if you download the pattern template, I can't really call it a pattern, that's a bit of a grand name for it, but you'll see you've just got this piece for the bonnet back with 24 centimetres written across there. So this is how long you need to cut it, and it needs to be 24 centimetres that way ish. If you've got a bit that's a little bit less or a little bit more, just you can use it, you can definitely make it work. It doesn't need to be that precise. As long as you've got a piece roughly that size, it'll work. First thing is to stitch all the way around here. I'm just going to stop short by about 1/8 of an inch there and there, or 2 or 3 millimeters short of that, and I'll just use a small running stitch. I don't think it needs to be a strong stitch like a back stitch for this one. And then I'm going to turn under about 1/4 of an inch along one of the long edges, and I'm going to do a line of running stitch all the way along there, and then I'm going to run a gathering stitch along here, and I'll do that the same as I did before by putting the 2 ends through the eye of the needle and leaving the loop, because that will give me a double thickness thread to gather with as well. So I'm just going to do that stitching and then come back to you, because there's nothing new there. Stitched all along the bottom there. Just realised I've done one boo-boo. I've stitched down the edges there. I think I can get around that though. And now I'm just going to run a gathering stitch along this top edge. So I've done what I did before. I've put the thread in, so I've put the 2 ends of the thread, I've folded it in half, put the 2 ends of the thread through the eye of the needle, and I've got the loop at the other end. Because I do like to have a double thickness thread when I'm gathering. So I was going to pull that through, not all the way, put the needle back through the loop, and then just run a sort of medium-sized stitch all the way along this top edge. And this is the edge that will gather into the brim of my bonnet. And here's the brim. I've turned it right way out. I'm going to have to shut that curtain now, it's getting a bit... Turned it right way out, and then I've turned the edge under all the way around. Now I'm going to gather up this edge to fit along the top edge of that brim. There we are. So that's the right length, and now I can fasten it off. And you could definitely make it a longer strip if you want it to be the bonnet to be more full, but I think this is enough. Put these 2 edges together and just stitch them together, but just this one layer of the brim. This other layer I'm going to leave free. I want to arrange the gathers sort of evenly along, and you could definitely just kind of pleat it as you go if you find that easier. There we go, that's those pleats arranged reasonably evenly around the bonnet. And now I can just, I'll carry on and use the rest of this thread and just stitch them together. Of course you could easily and quickly do a lot of this with a sewing machine instead of hand stitching as well. Stitch that all together there. I can take the gathering stitches out now in case they show through. Now if I fold it back, you can see That's all gathered into the brim. And actually it might have been, I think on that first one I must have cut it a little bit longer, so maybe it would be better longer than 24 centimetres. Did I go and measure it wrong and make it, no, I made it 24. So yeah, maybe it's almost double the length of the brim, so I thought that would be plenty, but it definitely could be fuller, couldn't it? So yeah, just, you know, if you want to have a fuller, more gathered bonnet, you can just make that strip longer. So now I'm going to go back over to the other side, and where I've turned this, the other edge in, I'm going to use that to finish this off underneath. So I'll just enclose all of the gathered fabric inside the brim. You know, it occurs to me that you could even, if you wanted to, you could even glue this part. So I'm just going to now slip stitch this all the way along, so I end up with everything enclosed inside that brim. Let's use this thread that I've already got on my needle. I'm just taking tiny stitches out of the gathered fabric, because I don't want them to show on the other side if possible. You could definitely also do it by machine stitching, so you'd end up with a little line of top stitching along that edge. That would look quite nice as well. And if you do get any stitches that show, just decorate it with a bit of trim. Just cover it. That's partly why I ended up doing this bit here, which I think turned out to look really cute. So I'm just doing a little overstitch like this all the way along. So you can see how that's not going to show from the other side, and it's neat on inside and outside. There we go, just coming to the end of that. Let's do a little knot to secure everything, and take the end back between the layers of fabric. So there we go. That's what I should have now, and I'm ready for the next stage. So I'm going to need some of this to gather up at the back and some to tie around the head as well. So to tie around the head, and now I want to thread this. I'm going to gather this edge up with the ribbon, which is why I realised I'd done a boo-boo by already stitching this up. But it's okay, because I can just make a little hole. I'll just snip a little hole. That'll be fine. I'll do a little snip that end, and a little snip this end. And I'm going to put, I've got this huge great needle. It obviously doesn't need to be as big as this. But this will work. Making sure it's gone right inside that casing that I've created. Thread that all the way through and out the hole I just got at the other end. And now, oops, I'm going to draw this up as tight as it will go. Just a little granny knot there. And I could just tuck that inside, or I could have done that just with some gathering thread and tucked it up inside. But I'm going to leave. I want it to show like this, like I've got there. And yes, that's now the back of my bonnet. And now I just need to adjust this side depending on the size of the head. So with this doll, she's got a bigger head and more hair. This one, she's got a smaller head and a bit less hair, so I'm not going to need so much distance back this way. So you can kind of see how that's going to look, and it will tie under her chin. But I need to pull this edge in, and that's the bit that, you know, you just have to adjust that to the size of head that you've ended up with. You could just gather it all the way along there, but I found that gathered it up too much. Yeah. So I think for this one I'm going to pleat this up just twice like this and just put a little stitch in each of those pleats just to bring that in. And this is just like, it's going to very much depend on how your doll's head has turned out, how much hair she's got. So yeah, if I just do a pleat this way and a pleat that way and stitch them together there like that. Can you see what I mean? And I'll do that on both sides, obviously. Then I've only got the ribbon bow to put on. So again, I've done the trick of folding the thread in half, putting the two ends through the eye of the needle and having the loop at the other end, because it'll be so much easier to do this without having to worry about a knot to start with. So I'm just going to take a little stitch there, not pull it all the way through, put my needle back through the loop. So there you can see better what I've done there. Just pleated that together. That's what it looks like on the other side. There we go. So you can see that now that's created that little bonnet shape. There's probably different ways you could do that. You could just gather it into another little cuff around the bottom or whatever. I was just trying to keep this like a nice, easy, simple way to do it. I don't think this one really suits a bonnet. I don't think it really goes with her outfit in the same way, but we'll carry on anyway. So I'm going to do the other one, the other side the same, and then I just need to put a band on here. And the way I did this was to take another length of the ribbon. There's the centre of the bonnet, centre of the ribbon roughly. I just tacked that all the way around there like that. Then I did a blanket stitch over the top of it. You can see how I've done a blanket stitch there, and I just really like the look of that, so I'm going to do it again with this one. I don't think she's going to be, I don't think this one is going to be wearing a bonnet. It just doesn't look right really. I should have done the other kind of hat for her, but as I say, this has all got a lot longer than I expected it to, so I'm going to save the hat and do that when I come back to do the old lady dolls, because I think they'll need hats definitely. I think she's fine without a hat actually. Very different looking from the same basic body shape, very, very different looking. I'll probably make the other kind of the simpler boots for her as well. Okay, so I'm going to carry on and finish this now, and then I'll just come back and show you the finished bonnet, and we're done with this video. Here we go, that's that finished now. It really doesn't fit too well on this doll. It doesn't go with the outfit really, or the shape of her head, but you can kind of she's just modelling it for you so you can see. And actually, you know, I could sort of turn the brim back like that. That's quite cute. That's the sort of the look of the hat that I was going to make. Was going to have a turned back brim like that, but as I say, I'll come back and do the hat another time now, because I think a hat like that would look really cute on her. And also on my old ladies I'm coming back to make. So let's have a look at this one now. So there's the little closure at the back, little pleats down here to just bring the bottom in, and you definitely could add a little lace ruffle around there or whatever. Extra ruffle of this fabric as well. Sometimes they have that, you know, if you look at the Holly Hobby dolls, they have that sort of ruffled bit at the back here. Here's what it looks like on the inside. So it's all quite sort of neat and tidy, and yeah, it does look quite nice turned back like that as well. And if you didn't want to do this bit here with the bow at the back, you could just gather the whole lot in. And I think that's the way some of the traditional kind of prairie style bonnets were done, but yeah. So let's get me a little thumbnail. Let's show off her little boots and her, now can we see her boots and bloomers and bonnet? If I hold her like that, I think we can see a little bit of all of those. Let's try one. That was always the classic Holly Hobby pose, was always from the side with just her little little cheeks and nose poking out. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's kind of brought this little series, this little sort of mini series, making these little dolls, to an end. I am going to come back and do the old lady dolls. I really need to do the old lady dolls, and so I will do a pattern for a different style of hat then, and some other accessories and clothes and things, because yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a go at those. But I've got some other projects to catch up on now, so that's the end of my little doll making mini series for the time being, but it's definitely something I'll be coming back to over the coming months. So watch this space if you enjoyed all of that. The template for this, for the bonnets, boots and bloomers, will be available to download on from my Gumroad, which I will put a link to in the description box below, as well as the other. I think I've put all of this series in my doll making playlist, so you can see how I made the bodies with the 2 different types of heads, the 2 different ways of constructing the body, the little outfits, and then I'll put today's on there as well. If you do have a go, a lot of people have downloaded the templates, so I'm hoping to see lots of different dolls cropping up all over the place. So please do share pictures and tag me. There's the Arty Farty Annie group on Facebook and our Discord community, Arty Farty's Discord community. They're all free to join, so please do join if you haven't already. There's lots of inspiration there, lots of amazing creative people, and of course you can share your pictures and we can all see what you're making. Special thank you as always to my amazing channel members. They'll be scrolling up here as I speak. 39 amazing people who choose to show their support by joining as channel members. I really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who shows support just by watching the videos, leaving a comment, clicking the like button, and subscribing. Subscribing doesn't cost anything, and it all really helps to grow the channel. So that's quite enough for me today. I dread to think how long it's going to take me to cobble all of those bits and pieces together into a video, but I hope it worked out all right, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for joining me. I'll see you again really soon. Bye.